Hi guys, I am so thrilled to be talking to you guys about 13 minutes. This is powerful, it is heartbreaking, it is hopeful, it is an intense and personal character study of individuals, of a town, and of a tornado and its indiscriminate nature. You, no pun intended, you guys blew me away. Blew me away with this one.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Where did this start? Travis, you are a recognized storm chaser. Did you go to Lindsay? Did Lindsay go to you? How did this idea of telling this story, and not only this story, but a story where most of the proactive activities are done by women? The men kind of, for lack of a better term, kind of idiots in many cases. But it's the strength of the women that really rivals the strength of the tornado. And I love that.
I love that point of view on it, that take on it. So yes, I'm a storm chaser, and I was very familiar with Lindsay's work in film. There's no one else that I would have talked to about making a tornado film other than Lindsay Gosling. So her and I sat down and we said, all right, how are we going to do a tornado movie? That's what we got to do, but we got to do it right, and we got to do it different. A lot of storm films are all about fun and they're not real. And so that's what we set out to do. We set out to make a film that was grounded in the realities of a devastating severe weather day, and we set out to do it in a community where we were committed to spending time with the characters and the human beings who are impacted by severe weather, not just the weather itself. And so when we talked about how these characters could interface with this day that we wanted to put them in, I actually think it came quite naturally that some of the heroes were women. I'm not sure, to be honest with you, how intentional that really was. It just, to me, took shape.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, it makes perfect sense because you look at any disasters and it's women who really are the ones holding families together and really multitasking and juggling everything under the sun, even in day-to-day life. It felt very natural watching that this is how it played out.
For me, when we started out, we also tried to craft a world that was 50-50,
Mm-hmm.
in terms of men and women in this movie. We took great care to make sure that, there was balance in this world because that's the real world.
Mm-hmm.
And, one of the things when we started out was, Travis does a lot of work with a company called Impact WX, and they spend a lot of time trying to, help people with weather messaging and, doing the right things, know how to behave in extreme weather situations for survival. And, each one of our storylines has a bit of a communication issue at its core, whether it's people who are unwilling to communicate, who won't listen when they're being told something very directly, like in the Luke, Tammy, Rick storyline,
Mm-hmm.
Or they get, confused by mixed messaging and outdated advice, or just mixed messaging in general, like Maddie and Jess, or, they don't understand weather messaging because of language barriers. And we started to assign, building out from that, like what is the human story at the heart of each one of these characters' worlds, and each one of them is at a moment in their life where they are, at a climax or a turning point or facing a really huge decision. And those characters, it became, we've got Maddie's story, and we've got, Payton and Kim, and just bit by bit, and Tammy and Luke, and you're right, it sort of all evolved. So each one of our, heroes of each storyline, we have very, very strong, real, authentic women.
Oh, the characters, the character development and the construction is so incredible. The diversity, women, men, children, a deaf child, non-English speaking immigrants, working parents. I mean, the generational farmer. You've got everything in here. Everybody gets a moment. And what I find very striking, Lindsay, is in working with your DP, with Steve Mason, is that as the day progresses, and as more turmoil and questions come into each individual's life, Yancey Arias is Carlos. He doesn't understand enough English, but he's out driving and he's trying to pick up parts, and then he has his English tape in, but so he doesn't hear storm warnings, and things are intensifying. The sky mirrors the intensity of the conflict within each person's life. And that, I think, is so visually stimulating to watch that until everything comes to the crescendo when this F5 hits.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, and this is something, when we first started talking about tornadoes, and again, Travis can jump in at any point, but we were talking about, a very specific type of tornado, which is this big rain-wrapped tornado, and following those weather patterns on the storm day, we tried to stay very, very true to those. And it is amazing how they just sort of perfectly mirror the dramatic build of a tornado day, also within that sort of dramatic arc of a character's story on film. And, we really built all of those climaxes. We had a big cast, an ensemble cast, and a short amount of time for the audience to engage with each set of characters before we're going to destroy their world. So we had a very limited amount of time. That's where the actors were just absolutely phenomenal in terms of their performances, to be able to get people to really be able to know who they are, what they're facing, what their world is like, understand their kind of day-to-day before we are going to blow this world apart. And so that, hopefully we care about each and every one of them in the aftermath as they all try to find one another and, their loved ones, and, find their way through.
Oh, sorry, Debbie. I was just going to add that, I think Lindsay is absolutely right that the characters' stories and their conflicts and their emotions really do parallel the weather of the day in this film. And that was definitely by design. We followed the weather patterns on a day like this, by the book. And we worked with a phenomenal VFX team at Company 3 in Toronto, and spent a lot of time with our sky replacements, making sure that the skies that we chose to kind of insert into the film in all of these moments, they were real and true to the day, and they also had the drama and the emotion that Lindsay was going for all the way along.
The sky patterns, the VFX of the sky is amazing. Amazing. It is so authentic to news footage that we repeatedly see whenever we get these tornado bands happening in Tornado Alley or anywhere now, as it kind of expands to other areas. I was just blown away by that. But it's that mirroring with each character that is just so emotionally powerful. Lindsay, you just knocked it out of the park with that. And I have to tell you that you may think that you only had a short amount of time to get people invested in each of these characters and their day. You hooked me immediately with each one. And a lot of that is due to your casting and their performances. How did you put this cast together This is an outstanding cast, and I have to tell you, Paz Vega, she is the glue in this film and in this cast.
Travis, everyone involved in this film, I think we were absolutely floored by the caliber of cast that we were able to attach to the film, and just so absolutely thrilled that each and every one of them wanted to play the parts. We had amazing casting directors. There are some of the cast who are really well known and have very much household names who we were desperate to get and really, really hoped that they would connect with the material, and other amazing, not newcomers, but, hopefully that people will get to know better through 13 minutes, who also just were absolutely phenomenal in terms of their performances. This is a tornado movie, it's a disaster movie, it is a thrilling ride, but it's also a drama, and each and every one of our characters' story has a heart and has a purpose and has a message, and I think we were able to find cast who got it and connected to each one of these storylines and to the messaging for whatever reason.
You definitely succeeded. You definitely succeeded, Lindsay. And one of the real standouts is Shaylee Mansfield as Payton. She shines, and the camera loves her, but her performance and sign language is just so powerful because people don't stop and think about the hearing impaired or the visually impaired in times of a disaster. How do they get warnings? How do they know? And I think you really brought that to the forefront here.
Shaylee Mansfield she's 12. She was 10 or 11 when we shot the film, and she is a little legend in the making. She is phenomenal. She is deaf. She nonverbal, and so are both of her parents. Her sister is hearing, but in their family there are three of them are deaf and one is hearing. She is an incredible actor. What I found incredible, all of them are so, Shaylee in particular, they're so expressive with her face. Like she's saying, because in sign language, they tend to use the facial expression a lot more powerfully than we do when we speak. And so naturally, she emotes in a way that just reads without words, with sign, and you don't need to understand what she's saying to know what's going on.
You've got some great scenes where she just looks up at the sky and the birds, and it's, that she knows something that nobody else is picking up on. It's just amazing watching it. Amazing.
Shaylee's performance, I think, I absolutely agree with everything that Lynn said there. I would add, too, that Shaylee's performance, as well as the rest of the cast and Lindsay's directing, there were amazing, dramatic, emotional, heartfelt performances. But all of these actors, all of this talent, also had to put forth some very physical performances as well in the action scenes. And when the tornado hits, I think also in those moments, Shaylee. Lynn, you can speak better to the filming of it, certainly than I can, but Shaylee was there performing in front of a wind machine, and VFX, got a tornado on top of her later, and it all comes together in the film in just the most exciting and kind of breathtaking way.
Absolutely. Both Shaylee and Sofia Vassilieva, who plays Maddie, just crushed that, the house destruction scene, because they had nothing, we were not a huge budget film, and so when we filmed this, house implosion moment, it was, we didn't have a green room, we shot it on location, we had all the furniture in, then all the furniture out, and they were just saying, okay, the tornado is on top of you, and react, and something hits you, and it hits you again, and then and it was so real. Both of them just absolutely, I don't know how they do it. They're amazing.
I completely agree. Speaking of destruction, I have to ask you about the aftermath and an entire town, but for essentially two buildings wiped out. How much of that was practically done in terms of throwing broken everything, including the kitchen sink, onto the ground, and how much was VFX? Because when you see that massive amount of devastation in this microcosm of just one town and on the ground, it really hits hard. So I'm curious, was that VFX? Was it a blend of VFX and practical, or was it all practical? I'm really curious about that because the reactions of the actors, of the characters to seeing this devastation, and again, I look to Paz Vega as Anna. The look on her face is just unbelievable. So I'm curious about how that whole aftermath was handled and shot.
Yeah, so that was a combination. It was a combination of practical and visual effects. And I hesitate to put a percentage on it, but a huge, I almost want to say 80% was practical, 20 to 30% was VFX, but the VFX take it to the completely next level and polish it and finish it. And we had to create that, giving away all the secrets, but we had, we found a subdivision that was unfinished. It had roads and curbs, but nothing else. And we had about 80 dumpster loads. A phenomenal production designer who, we spent so much time, through Travis's the visual reference that he provided of, and we had researched together of tornado aftermath and what it looks like, and then just going through and making sure that it was reconstructed in a way that was authentic and looked like actual tornado damage, which is different to hurricane damage or other natural disasters. And then the actors had something to work with. And for Paz, for all of them, for that whole sequence, there's such poetry in that destruction. Mm-hmm. So all the lives ripped apart, all the pieces of lives blended together. So much tragedy, and there's so much in those visuals for people to take away, and so much humanity in those moments. I'm going to deviate a little bit here, but so much of this is we have all of these stories that we build, and at the beginning of the film, so many of the characters are somewhat inward-looking, or they're looking. The world is them, and their little worlds and their microcosms. And then when a disaster like this happens in real life, in the film, it strikes and it absolutely destroys the world. It acts as a leveler, and it also is something that can bring people together. And in the aftermath, all of the differences are set aside, mm-hmm. and people come together and they help each other. And the hope is, that there is a shift in perspective in how you look at the world. Like when everything is gone and you can see as far as the eye can see, does your perspective shift or doesn't it? When everything is destroyed, and again, not wanting to give too much away, but for some characters it will change their world outlook, and for others it won't. But yes, that aftermath is horrific and beautiful, and a real, it's such a transitional moment in the film, and a change in the way the characters behave.
Yeah, that's one of the most powerful aspects and some of the most powerful messaging that we get in the film, is that the power of humanity really can equal the power and force of an F5 tornado when people come together. I would be remiss, Lindsay, not to ask you about Ariel Marx's score. It is a beautiful undercurrent, and it builds almost in tandem with the winds of the tornado until the tornado hits. And then the score becomes very haunting, yet very hopeful. So I'm curious what your thoughts were with Ariel in terms of what you wanted musically to meld with the sonic soundscape.
Ariel was absolutely brilliant. She's an incredible composer, and we were so lucky to be able to work with her on this film. And that's exactly it. You know, we wanted the score to, you know, have those natural wind tone strings and emulate the weather and elevate and just provide the voice of the storm from those early, you know, from there's pre-dawn, you know, the thunderstorm at the outset all the way through. That's exactly what it's doing. So yeah, to do that you kind of got it all. You got it already. That's what we were going for.
Yeah, no, it truly is remarkable. But one last question for you guys. I've got to ask Travis. As a storm chaser, you have seen all kinds of tornadoes. With climate change, what is the greater chance now? Do we have a greater chance of seeing more F5-like magnitude tornadoes in the world today, especially in Tornado Alley?
I mean, even just by virtue of the fact that we are growing as societies, our cities are expanding their footprint, we're taking over more space on this earth. Even just by virtue of that, we are putting ourselves more in front of severe weather events. I have a personal opinion on climate change, but I'm not an expert to speak to that. But I will say that we know that people and communities are being impacted more and more by extreme weather events. And the idea that, you know, we're getting very good at our warnings, but if we're not responding to those warnings properly, if we don't know how to respond, or we're not equipped to respond for one reason or another, like the characters in this film, then that's going to make or break a moment of survival. So we really want to make sure that we leave the audience with kind of the cultural tools to look to when they receive, you know, a weather warning on their phone or hear the sirens down the road. That was kind of essential to us.
Any last thoughts, Lindsay? It's tough to top what Travis just said.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is it. Like this film, when we talked about it at the outset, and you know, what is it about? It's about survival, and it's not just physical survival, but it's social, emotional, and cultural survival, and all of those things are tied in, you know, to our world, the human world, and also to the natural world, and you know, it's all interconnected. So yeah, we hope people will see the film and enjoy the film and the story and the disaster and the excitement of the phenomenal visual effects that are in there, and they go and see it.
Well, you guys you knocked it out of the park. For my money, though, it's not as much about the visual effects as the heart that you capture. And the fact that you make this is every town USA. This could happen anywhere. And it's looking at the people individually and as a town, that as a community, that really shines in 13 minutes.
Thank you so much. It's so wonderful to hear.
Thank you. Yeah, it's phenomenal.
Guys, thank you so much. This has been so wonderful. And Lindsay, quite honestly, I can't wait to see what you do next.
Aw, thank you.
You know, team up with Travis. Team up with Travis. You two are a good combo here. Do something else.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
I can't wait to see what's next, too.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.